Welcome back to MMA Al Dente. I am the guy who picked Kevin Holland to defeat Jack Della Maddalena. And I am here to recap UFC Fight Night Grasso versus Shevchenko 2 out of 3, maybe. Or UFC Nachos, or whatever the fuck. Either way, I'm going to start at the top, Valentina and Grasso, and I'm going to work my way back down to the main event of this video, Jacqueline Knuttson versus Mann, which was scored 30-24 by this guy, Mike Bell, who is the same asshole that scored the main event a draw. He's the guy that gave round 5, 10-8 to Grasso, which, that's the story of the fight now, the morning after. That is the issue. That's the controversy. I don't think there would have been, well, I think there would have been controversy if there was no 10-8 round. I think we were looking at a razor-thin fight that was about to be scored a split decision. But still, the controversy isn't over who won. It's over the guy scoring the round 10-8, which it should not have been a 10-8 round. I think it was one of the biggest moments of the fight. I think it was the biggest moment of the fight. She did knock down Shevchenko, but that wasn't, you know, that got the crowd roaring, but she wasn't in that much danger. Here, especially considering the way the fight ended the last time, this was a gigantic moment. But despite it being a gigantic moment, it wasn't in the realm of a 10-8 round. Wasn't even fucking close. She got on top of Valentina, reversing a takedown, by the way, which Shevchenko was on point with some well-timed takedowns, ripping her to the mat from the clinch. But Alexa this time got her back and put her in a rear naked choke once or twice. Wasn't really too close. My fucking Alexa, stop. All right. But it was still domination from Grasso. Grasso had her down, and even if the chokes weren't that tight, she did maintain top position. Maybe not even top position, but she kept her hooks in. Valentina actually ended up reversing position. But still, Grasso maintained control and had a near finish, I want to say, or halfway there. But still, that was not a 10-8 round. There was no significant damage. I'm not even sure how close the subs were, but I know it sounded like sour grapes if you watched the Valentina interview afterwards, but I agree with her assessment that this guy Bell was swept up in the moment. He was caught up in the moment with the crowd roaring, and the crowd was for Grasso. I know it's a Vegas crowd, but this was Noche, so it was, you know, a big Mexican crowd there. They were certainly supporting Mexicans anyway. But I still thought there's no way that's a 10-8 round. We're going to a split decision. I had it 1, 3, and 4 for Shevchenko, but I knew round 4 was up for grabs. Grasso did a lot of good work there, but she still let herself get ripped to the mat. I thought it was a really close fight, and I thought I'd be making this video bitching about a decision, which I kind of still am, but I don't think, I wouldn't have been bitching if Grasso won the fight, or Shevchenko, or whatever. It was really just that close, but the fight shouldn't have been a draw, because there was no 10-8 round. If there were 10-10 rounds, then, you know, maybe it should have been a draw. Altogether, this was a very, very close fight. And if it was scored under pride rules, which were you judge the fight as a whole, and you give a nod to the effort to finish, Grasso may have won, to be honest. She may have won the war with that last-minute effort. In the 24th and 25th minute of a fight, she has the biggest moment. So that was a great way to put a stamp on the fight and the performance. But this fight is not judged as a whole. It's judged with 5 individual wars, 5 individual battles. And I thought Shevchenko won 3 of them. I think these girls will rematch. And I think it's going to be a very similar fight. I think we're going to see the same exact tactics we saw in both fights. And I think it'll be really close. I think they're really, really well matched. I've always known Valentina is elite. And now my thoughts are exactly the same with Alexa Grasso. And that's not to say either one of these girls won't be smoked in the future, especially Valentina getting older, and we've got some monsters coming up like Tatiana Suarez, who's already gone through Alexa Grasso with ease. But Alexa Grasso has drastically improved as a fighter. I think she is going to be a submission threat moving forward. She got her first sub against Joanne Wood less than a year ago, I think, or maybe a little over a year ago, but she's, her submission game is a problem at the highest level, obviously. Won her the championship and gave her one of the biggest upsets in UFC history. But she is a very well-rounded fighter, and I have the third fight, being a very, very close fight, regardless of who wins. I think it's going to be a similar battle, and I think it's going to be close. These girls are each other's equals. And for Valentina, she's only getting older. She's 35 years old. She still has distinct advantages over Alexa Grasso. I thought she should have won this fight, but my point is she can definitely win in the future. She's got to strike while the iron's hot and really push for a rematch, because there's a lot of contenders coming up, that are already in the realm of getting the title shot. Whoever they are, Blanchfield, Manon Fior, whoever the fuck. Tyler Santos, no, she's out of it now, but, she's still in striking distance. I think Valentina, her best days are behind her, but her legacy she can still build on. And, you could argue she built on it last night. I don't think it really hurt her legacy, but winning that extra title, that's going to do a lot for her legacy, and that's what she's still fighting for. I don't envision her fighting for a long, long time, to be honest. I think she is slowing down, but as I said before, I think she's Alexa Grasso's equal, and I hope to see these two girls fight sooner than later, especially because they have all these hot contenders coming up that are, they've already earned title shots, these girls, where they're in the realm, but they have to take a back seat now, maybe, because of a draw. So that always sucks. But yeah, hopefully they do it quickly if they're going to do it, which there's no telling what they're going to do. But I think Valentina certainly deserves it, because she didn't tap in the end, kept herself safe, and I thought racked up enough points early to win the fight. But again, could have gone either way, 3-2 either fighter, no complaints. That brings me to Kevin Holland versus Jack Della Maddalena, or Jack Della Maddalena versus Kevin Holland, I should say. Jack won this fight, I thought. I thought Kevin Holland was very, very competitive. I thought the first two rounds were close, and they kind of could have gone either way. But that was really just me seeing what I wanted to see, because I did bet on Kevin Holland. Of course, I bet on Jack to win by decision as well, so it all worked out in the end. But Kevin Holland was very competitive in this fight, but just wasn't able to dominate Jack on the feet. Wasn't able to get the better of him, I should say. I thought Jack, despite giving up, 8 inches of reach and the 4 inches of height, he was slow but steady, moving forward and picking Kevin apart at his range. Kevin was never able to dictate the range. I thought it was Jack coming in, chewing his legs up, and then hitting him with much better combinations throughout the fight. But Kevin was still throwing back, and he did have some good long punches at his range, just that was never the story of the fight. And in the end, Jack got the better of him. I thought, Kevin Holland, I gave him round 2, but I kind of wanted to. The first 2 rounds could have gone either way, but I definitely leaned towards Jack. I thought he was, going to be ahead on the judges' scorecards. And then in round 3, it was close until the final minute or so. Jack turned it up almost on cue from the commentators. And he really got off some great shots on Kevin Holland and sealed the victory with the 3rd round, in my opinion. Kevin Holland, he's a really tough guy, and I think he's really dangerous everywhere, but he's not always the best when it comes to optics. Sometimes he gets a little too caught up in talking and whatever, and he has a little bit of Diaz in him. And I thought here in this fight, he was not taking it too seriously when Jack was storming him. He was turning his back sometimes and running against the cage, and just really hurt by optics on the scorecards, I think. And I'm not saying that he should have won and he lost because of these optics. I thought Jack Della Maddalena got the better of him overall, but those optics never help, you know, and they're probably not your best course of action either. Maybe throwing back and circling out would, you know, work out for you better. But still, it was a really close fight. I do think Kevin Holland showed once again he is incredibly tough. He's tough everywhere, body, head, leg. I think it's going to be incredibly difficult to knock that guy out or beat him with strikes, aside from a doctor stoppage, of course. You know, and Wonder Boy is an excellent striker, and he had an extra 5 minutes to beat him up. So that's a little more context for that fourth-round doctor stoppage. But I think Kevin Holland proved his toughness once again, but he also showed he's not the most imposing fighter. And Jack Della Maddalena was able to impose himself, despite giving up 8 inches of reach. So Jack, moving forward, he's still undefeated. He kind of takes away that stain from Basil Hafez, even though he wasn't tested in the exact same way, obviously. Kevin Holland is the exact opposite fighter as Basil Hafez, as I said in the pre-fight. But also, as I said in the pre-fight, this is the biggest test for Jack Della Maddalena because Kevin Holland is much more dangerous than Basil Hafez everywhere. And Jack Della Maddalena kept himself out of danger and beat up Kevin Holland. You know, it was still close, but he definitely did more damage. So, great win for Jack. Sucks he wasn't able to get the finish, but I don't think he was ever going to get the finish in this one anyway. And he should definitely be content with a good victory over Kevin Holland on the feet. And for Kevin Holland, that guy is the new Cowboy Cerrone. He's a fucking cowboy. He'll be back, I don't know at which weight class or whatever, but he's a gunslinger, and he's in 2 different weight classes. Dangerous guy and a very exciting guy. I still don't think he's done moving up in the sport, but this is a significant setback at welterweight anyway. Raul Rosas Jr. beat up, what the hell's his name? Terrence Mitchell. Terrence Mitchell is just, he doesn't belong in the UFC. He's a guy who can smoke a lot of fighters that can't test him. You know, he kicked everyone's ass in Alaska or whatever. But here in the UFC, he's too vulnerable. And he's only getting older. Now I think he's 33. So you can almost say he's in his mid-30s. And he's too vulnerable. Raul Rosas Jr., I'm sure this guy is getting better everywhere, every day. But I didn't think he would knock down Terrence Mitchell, although, like I said, Terrence Mitchell's biggest weakness is his chin. He's been knocked out by Kai Kara-France. He was slammed, which, you know, that I don't know if that's a strike against your chin, but he was knocked unconscious and convulsing with a slam way back when. And Cameron Simon got it done on the ground, but overall, he's just a very fragile guy. And Raul Rosas Jr., I really thought he would win like Cameron Simon, and he kind of did in the end, but he knocked him down first. And, yeah, Raul Rosas Jr., I don't want to take away from his victory. He's 18 years old, and he beat up a 33-year-old in the UFC, and looked fucking awesome doing it. But I have to say, Terrence Mitchell's not going to be in the UFC for too much longer, and this is not going to be considered a great victory for too much longer. But as of now, great win for Raul Rosas Jr. He looked awesome. I think the fight lasted a minute or so. And then he gave a horrible promo where he kept doing the Ric Flair woo after. That was pretty tough to watch. But whatever. You know, a great win for an 18-year-old kid. And for Terrence Mitchell, yeah, I don't know. Maybe we'll see him again once more or so. But he's probably just going to be fed to somebody. That brings me to Christos Giagos and Daniel Zellhuber, or Daniel Zellhuber and Christos Giagos. Giagos was testing Zellhuber. Usually these type of fights that go down this way, it happens the other way, where the youngster's testing the newcomer figures out the youngster and tames him and puts him away in the second half of the fight. which I don't even know where this one ended. Could have been, but it was in the second round regardless. But Daniel Zellhuber was able to tame Giagos. He was able to tame Giagos. I thought Christos was sharper early on. I did think he won round 1, but then Daniel Zellhuber took over in round 2, beat him up to the body, some great kicks, and some good boxing as well that forced a shot from Christos Giagos, and he just snatched an anaconda choke immediately and got a tap out. It was really impressive for Zellhuber, who's got, or Zellhuber, whatever. He's got 2 submission victories, I want to say, without looking at my notes, which are in my other notebook. But I think he's just got 2 submissions. Now this is his 3rd, and he gets it in the UFC over a guy in Giagos who, despite being tapped multiple times, like I said in the pre-fight, I think the only guys to tap him in the last decade or so are Charles Oliveira, Thiago Moises, and fucking who else? Fuck. I don't know. Gilbert Burns. But he's a very good fighter in his prime, and despite being finished multiple times, Giagos was a good test and definitely a step up here. And Zellhuber passed the test and also put himself in a pretty damn good class of fighter by tapping him out. Great win for Zellhuber. My estimation of him as a fighter goes up in a lot of different ways, even though he didn't have the best start to the fight. But, yeah, 24 years old, and he tamed the veteran and got him out of there with a beautiful sub. It couldn't have gone better, unless he won round 1, maybe. That brings me to Kyle Nelson and Fernando Padilla. Kyle Nelson was able to tame Fernando Padilla. I thought Kyle Nelson had a few paths to victory in this fight, and he was able to find one. I did think he was able to land the harder strikes, plainly, on the feet, with his hands and with his legs, of course. And I thought he was chopping up Fernando Padilla and doing a great job throughout this whole fight. It was still pretty close, but I thought Kyle Nelson won the decision, and I'm glad they got this one right. Surprised it wasn't a fucking draw. But Fernando Padilla, I still think he's a very good fighter. This only brings up my estimation of his durability, which now he's got 5 losses, and I think they're all via decision. Some to some very good fighters, like Dan Ige. But here he ran into a guy in Kyle Nelson who's been underrated in the UFC by people like me, as well as many others. Kyle Nelson, he ran into some tough matchmaking early on, and my estimation of him as a fighter was not where it should have been. And he's gained my respect over time, and this one here was a great victory, because Fernando Padilla had a big steamrolling victory over Julian Erosa, was a pretty big favorite here, and Kyle Nelson took it to him and looked like a really composed fighter. Kyle Nelson, he really fought like the veteran here. This is the guy where, again, I've speculated on doubts about his cardio and whatever. He got finished by Billy, but he got beaten up really badly at the end of that fight. But I've had doubts about Kyle Nelson, but he's alleviated a lot of those doubts, and I think he is in his prime, and I think he's still a very healthy fighter, despite being subbed once and knocked out twice, or, TKO'd twice. He's definitely a guy that can take it, and if you have a hole that can be exposed, he can probably find that hole. Kyle Nelson's a well-rounded guy, and here he didn't need to be too well-rounded. He mostly got it done on the feet, but yeah, he's a good striker. Fernando Padilla is cleaner, but Kyle Nelson's a good striker. Hits hard, can fight technically as well as brawl, and solid victory for Kyle Nelson. And that brings me to Loopy Godinez versus Elise Reed. Speaking of solid victories, I don't think they come more solid than this. I don't know if Elise Reed had any moments in this fight. This was just a completely dominant performance from Loopy Godinez. I thought it was, her fight pretty much from the beginning, even before she hit the takedown, which was in the middle of round 1. But before that, Loopy was better on the outside, striking well, and then hit that takedown. And even though the fight still went on for another 5 minutes, it was pretty much over. She went through her, mounted her. First she knocked her down. I wrote that down. I can't believe I forgot to mention it. Knocked her down with a left hook, I believe. But sent her, flying halfway across the cage. And then was all over after that. But she came close with a rear naked choke after that. A really, really close armbar. And just dominated Elise Reed. Now that's a 10-8 round. Round 1 there. Although I'd probably have to rewatch it to stand by that statement. But I think, as far as I remember, that was a 10-8 round. That was domination. And then in round 2, she didn't let up at all. Hit a big slam. A much more powerful slam on Elise Reed. Was the much faster fighter. And then just found her way to a rear naked choke and got the tap. Elise Reed, she's a good fighter. Good striker, I should say. But she's vulnerable on the ground. That's where she's lost all 4 of her losses. They have been in the UFC, and they're to good fighters. But they're all finishes, and they all come on the ground. She's a striker in 2023 MMA. And Loopy Godinez, who can sometimes be a striker herself, reminded everybody that she's a force to be reckoned with on the ground. Her best work has been on the ground in the UFC, and she's looked really good on the feet at times. But Loopy Godinez is a problem if she can take you down. And she was all over Elise Reed and had one of the more dominant victories. I'd say the most dominant victory easily on this whole fight card. Excellent fucking performance. That brings me to Roman Kopylov versus Josh Fremd. This was pretty dominant as well. Might have gotten the finish around the same time. This was late in round 2. He got the finish. But Kopylov was just all over Josh Fremd. Josh Fremd came out of the gate striking pretty well, utilizing his whatever. I think he only had a 1-inch reach advantage, but he had 4 inches of height. And he's a longer fighter who's pretty fucking mobile as well. But Kopylov tamed him, made this a kickboxing fight, stuffed his takedown attempts, and beat him down. This was a beatdown. In the end, it wasn't power that got it done. It was Kopylov striking, and it was a beatdown. He did hit him with some powerful shots, of course, but he was beating Josh Fremd up. The fight was totally going his way, and then in the end, he got body shot finishes. A body shot finish with body shots from legs and arms. Just a fucking killer, Roman Kopylov. Mixes up his striking so well. And carries his power deep into the fight in every single fight. This one's no different from any other one of his wins in the UFC, pretty much, or even outside the UFC. They're almost all late finishes. Most probably in round 2, or maybe even round 3. He's got 2 in round 4. But he's a guy with a great work rate, great striking, really diverse attacks, as he proved here again, a kick and a punch to the body. And, yeah, he's a problem. If you can't go through this guy, and that entails a takedown or 2, then you're gonna run into it on the feet. And Roman Kopylov, he was too much for Josh Fremd. Made it his fight and beat the shit out of him. Great win for Roman Kopylov. And for Josh Fremd, I'm glad his chin didn't fail him, because that would give me more concern for his health moving forward. He was knocked out by RoboCop, but still, this it's another strike against his durability altogether, and this was a rough loss. He got beaten up here, but he gave it a good go. That brings me to Edgar Chairez versus Daniel Lacerda. Look, this sucked. This was going to be an awesome fight. And you know what? Daniel Lacerda, even with horseshit, no contest and whatever, still managed to give us an exciting fight with a round 1 finish. But the fight, there's controversy. It was ruled a no contest. And Daniel Lacerda was not out. But I don't blame Chris Tognoni at all for stopping this fight. I think you could make the argument that he should check the fighter after his arm goes limp. I don't think that's necessary. I know he's the ref. The judges and the fans can be fooled by optics, because that's all we have. And he's the ref. He's got his other fucking 4 senses, and he's right there up close to the action. But the guy was, his arm went limp. It's not like he moved, he said, oh, I'm going to stop fighting the choke, or I'll punch him, or whatever. His arm dropped. And you could say, hey, it's incumbent on the ref to do the old Hulk Hogan thing. Lift his arm 3 times. Is he out? No, he's the warrior, or whatever the fuck. It's not on him to do that, in my opinion. He was up there right close. I was watching it on the TV. They had the perfect angle. And once his arm went limp, I said the fight is over. He stopped it. I said, good stoppage. And then I looked at Daniel Lacerda, and his legs didn't move. He was planted firmly, and he just looked up and said, what the fuck? I wasn't out. He wasn't out. And there are tricks that you can pull as a fighter. Maybe he was trying to make him think he was out and whatever. I know Boss Rutan used to make a gargling sound when someone had him in a guillotine choke. Act like he was choking so the guy would burn energy. I get it. There's all kinds of horse shit. But the ref is not a mind reader. And I don't think it's the ref's job to do too much investigating. I know that sounds fucking stupid, but I think when an arm goes limp, and the arm went limp, he wasn't unconscious, yes, but there's no way you can watch that and not have your immediate impulse be, he's unconscious. It was mine, and it was the ref's. The ref stopped it. Turns out it was a bad, or whatever, I can't even say it was a bad stoppage. Turns out he wasn't unconscious. He might not have even been close. He looked totally fresh, to be honest. But I can't blame the ref. It is what it is. Fucking, maybe they'll have a rematch or whatever. I don't think either guy was hurt too badly. Well, maybe they both have fucking broken arms after 2 minutes of fighting. But very entertaining fight no matter what, because Daniel Lacerda's in it. I think, Daniel Lacerda, they gave him a 5th shot. May as well give him a 6th. I don't think this counts as a loss. But, yeah, I don't blame the ref. I think the ref was getting a lot of shit, and he saw what I saw. He was up close, and, yeah, he could have done a little more investigating and really figured it out. But he's got a fighter that he thinks is unconscious in a chokehold in front of him. So he wants to stop the fight and protect the fighter. That was his instinct. He went with that instinct, and turns out he was wrong. But, yeah, whatever. It brings me to Tracy Cortez versus Jasudavicius. This was a really close fight, but I thought Tracy Cortez won the fight. I thought Tracy Cortez would have been roughed up more on the feet, but credit to her, she was the better striker, the better boxer in particular. I thought this was a battle of speed versus reach and power. And I also, well, first of all, I thought this would have been a grappling match, largely, because both girls are so intent on grappling. But even though there was grappling, it was largely a striking fight, or, it was a mixed bag or whatever, but Tracy did better. I thought Tracy out-hustled her, and I was pretty sure she was going to win a decision. I know she won, but I don't remember if it was split or not. Or, could have been split, but I think it was unanimous. Either way, Jasudavicius performed well down the stretch. I thought it took her a little bit to get her bearings, but, she made it competitive in the end. Just wasn't able to dominate Tracy Cortez like she has some other girls recently. Miranda Maverick. Tracy Cortez was more mobile, a better threat, a bigger threat, I should say, on the feet, and a better class of wrestler where, you can't just, she's not an easy girl to dominate. She's been taken down, of course, but she took away Jasmine's primary strength altogether, and in the end we had a close fight, but I thought Tracy outpointed her. Great win for Tracy. She's undefeated ever since her first loss in her first MMA fight to a good fighter again, and she's got a win, despite it being bullshit in my opinion, over Erin Blanchfield. And I shouldn't say bullshit, it was fucking close enough. I just scored it for Blanchfield. It was like Shevchenko versus Grasso. It's not bullshit, although it is, because it was a fucking draw. But that brings me to Charlie Campbell versus Alex Reyes. Look, Alex Reyes, this guy was fucked over. Some guys are just fucked over, and this guy's one of them. I'm not saying he was destined for greatness or whatever the fuck, titles and whatever. But any shot of all that was taken away from him with stem cell infection, I think they said. I read about it once, I forgot about it, but they mentioned it last night. sounds pretty fucked up. I know they said he didn't know if he was going to walk again and whatever. So, yeah, he's had to deal with a lot. I'm sure he's more grateful than most. But he still wanted to get back in the UFC and be who he is. But the reality is that was taken away from him. He lost 6 crucial years. And despite the 6-year layoff, he was still coming off a knockout loss to Mike Perry. So there were questions about him anyway. There were going to be questions when he was 31. But instead, he comes back at 36, and he's fighting a young kid who's bigger, stronger, and a fucking wild man. And Charlie Campbell pretty much went through him. I still feel vindicated having bet on Alex Reyes. Well, not vindicated. I didn't fucking win anything. But I still feel validated having bet on Alex Reyes to win by round 1 knockout, just a sprinkle in round 2. Because I do think the fight went how I expected it to go. Charlie Campbell hurt him, but he wasn't able to put him away right away, which really was good for my knockout bet. Because I thought, all right, now his back is against the wall, Reyes, and he's going to have to throw down. But in the end, he never really got off that shot, and Charlie Campbell kept tagging him and tagging him and tagging him. And then the 5th time or whatever he tagged him, he dropped him on his ass and then pounded him out against the cage. Charlie Campbell looks like an awesome fighter, really fun to watch. I still have my doubts about him, of course, and he's a young enough fighter, but he's with a great team. But, yeah, here, Alex Reyes, I'm thinking it's the last time we're going to see him. Maybe he'll get back in there. I don't know. But I know the future is not bright. You know, this is the end of the road pretty much for Alex Reyes. And it was all taken from him. So it sucks. But, you know, this is one sport where you know, those 6 years can't be taken from you. 30 to 36. That's just too crucial. So it sucks for him. And for Charlie Campbell, welcome to the UFC. I don't know what this guy's ceiling is, but I know he's very, very fucking exciting. And that brings me to Jacqueline Knuttson, or Knuttson, whatever they were saying, versus Mann. This was domination. Mann was not able to have any real moment. I thought her moments would have come in grappling, or that would have been her game plan. And you know what? It probably was her game plan. But she was beaten up every step of the way, out-grappled every step of the way. And her best moments came with some well-timed strikes, a few counter right hooks or whatever. But even that was out of desperation, because that was plan D for her. She just wasn't able to make anything work, and Knuttson was beating the shit out of her. Beating the shit out of her. She came really close to getting a finish, had her hurt everywhere, busted her nose up in like a minute, and then beat her up at range in the clinch, on the ground. Advanced to mount, really beat the shit out of her. And in the end, she wasn't able to get a finish, which now brings her record to, whatever, 7-0, I think, with 6 decisions. So, I wish she would have gotten a finish here, because in the end, I think this is one of the more finishable fights, as Cormier was pointing out after the fight. You know, Mann is, like I said in the pre-fight video, I think she's Victoria Leonardo. And, you know, there's certainly similar types of fighters, broadly speaking, but Victoria's been finishing just about every loss. And I'm not saying that won't be the case with Mann, but, you know, certainly not now, because she lost by decision last night. But Mann was able to take it from Jacqueline Knuttson. So Mann, even though she's not proven to be a weak fighter that can't take it, she might be the toughest girl, just had an off night when she fought Bruna Brazil. But she's had one loss, and she was finished via head kick to Bruna Brazil, who made a statement in a way that I do think Jacqueline Knuttson could have made. Jacqueline Knuttson had every advantage Bruna Brazil had, and she was doing more, really beating up Mann, but she still wasn't able to close the show. So here I am spending a minute or two talking about her, and I'm just shitting on her. I thought she looked awesome, and I can't wait to see her fight again. But I do wish she would have gotten a finish. You know, she's only got 1 in her first 7 wins, and now she's moving on to some tougher fights. So the opportunities may not be there so much moving forward. But nevertheless, we got to see her fight for 15 minutes, learn more about her, and my estimation of her as a fighter fucking skyrocketed. For Mann, you know, I do have a much stronger opinion of her as a tough fighter. I think her toughness is there for her. You know, very much so. I think this was a really strong performance, standing up to an ass-kicking. But offensively, she didn't show much to have me believing she's going to have really any success in the UFC. Really, all she showed was toughness. Toughness, that's it. But altogether, a very good event. Just dominated by the main storyline, which is that Alexa Grasso retains her title via draw. Dog shit circumstances. Hopefully we get the rematch or some sort of closure moving forward. And we'll see what fucking happens. Like, share, subscribe, all that horse shit. And check out my other videos.